All right, thank you all for joining our alert origination software presentation. We have this platform here to allow vendors to address any questions from alerting authorities or users regarding capabilities or features within their software. At the end of the demonstration, you can ask questions in the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen, and we'll answer the questions in the order that they were received. This webinar will be recorded, and a link will be provided to the distribution list of the original invite for this invitation here. Copies of the presentation may be requested at justin.singer@fema.dhs.gov with the subject line as webinar presentation request. And I'm going to read the disclaimer here. The Integrated Public Alert and Warning System, IPAWS, vendor demonstrations are intended to increase state and local emergency management agencies' awareness of vendor products and IPAWS capabilities. The webinar provides an overview of the interoperability of these systems with IPAWS Open and will include vendor presentations of their products. FEMA IPAWS Program Management Office encourages and facilitates this discussion of products and tools, but it does not endorse any specific vendor product. This webinar is for educational purposes only. In today's demonstration, we're going to have IRIS presented by John and Mary Farrell, and any vendor or software specific questions can be directed to those email addresses there. And John, I'm going to pass you the presentation privileges so you can go ahead and share.
Thank you. And Kara, can you confirm that you can see my screen okay?
Yep, I can see it.
Wonderful. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. And especially, I'd like to extend a thank you to the IPAWS team for setting up the webinar. We really do love working with you all. So today I'm going to demonstrate IRIS, which stands for Incident Response and Information System. It's a central platform that allows authorities to send alerts and to establish two-way communications with the public. Now, just as a heads up, you may see it branded as things like two-way SOS, two-way emergency communications, or help alerts. Those are for different markets, but please understand that IRIS is really the underlying platform that's going to make everything I show you today possible. Now, before I get too far, I just want to do a very brief intro to my company, Information Logistics. We are a woman-owned business. We're based in the southern part of New Jersey, just outside of Philadelphia, right on the other side of the river there. We handle a very wide range of technology products, and what we really do is we try to spend most of our time listening to the needs of our clients and developing creative new solutions to make lives easier. A lot of our technology is for public communications, and we understand there's really a ton of tech companies out there. Just, most companies are tech companies anymore. What sets us apart is we're known for an innovative and award-winning approach to things. And a lot of that does begin with the listening part. What we find that a lot of agencies that are our clients, what they really do is they come to us when they're looking for a solution that's really outside the box and meets a need that they haven't seen something fit before. And that's really exactly what IRIS is. So IRIS itself is, as you probably guessed, an emergency alerting platform. And what it does is it combines the power of emergency alert messages with the ability to actually invoke two-way communications. Now, I'm going to get into that in a little more detail here. Now, with the emergency alerting part, and I'm specifically going to start by talking about the WEAs on here, the wireless emergency alerts. When an agency issues one, you have the option to include a URL in the communication, in the WEA that goes down, that clickable URL. The way it works with our system is that URL is going to take you to a website that is built and customized on the fly by the system specifically for the emergency or event that you have on hand right now. So when you enter the information for the WEA, you're simultaneously building the website by clicking one button and it all comes together and it's all integrated there. Once a member of the public clicks on that website, they're going to be able to opt in to get updates going forward that are going to come via regular text messages. So you have this initial wireless emergency alert, and then you're going to have regular text messages for anybody who says, yes, I want more updates on this emergency situation. What you're then able to do is, without them knowing anything about the system in advance, you're going to have direct access and be able to send the official word straight to these members of the public right into the phone in their hand. The other really cool part that you'll see is that you can also wind up collecting information back from the public so you can pull some ground level intelligence for people that are actually sitting right in the middle of the situation. The idea is that this all comes together to give the agency who's in charge of responding to the event enhanced response effectiveness. We want to make sure that when you're responding to your events, you have as much information as possible and that you can get as much information as possible back to the folks that need it. Now, as I pointed out, today's demonstration is going to be heavily focused on sending WIA messages, but I also just want to put it out there that the system can be also configured to issue EAS alerts. That use case goes a little differently, but so we're just going to really focus on WIAs today. So what I want to talk about is another one of the system's innovative features here, which is the flexibility for how your workflow can be set up. It's something that's a little different. So there's two ways that the system can be set up. The first way is what most alerting authorities, I think, are expecting out of an alerting software. And that's where you have your COG, your EMA, or whoever is using the software, and it's them using it by themselves. Now, we have it built so that there's a hierarchy of approval, so you can have somebody initiate something and then it gets approved before any alerts are sent, just so you have a little bit of an approval chain there. But really, option one is staying within an EMA. Option two is something that you don't see as often. And this is where you can actually, I guess I'll use the term oversee and maybe share the alerting authority portion with another agency inside your government. So what I'm going to do is, for today's examples, I'm going to use an example where you have a Department of Transportation working hand in hand with an emergency management agency to use this software. So that the DOT is going to be managing a roadway emergency, but in order to get word out to the folks that are stuck in this dangerous situation, they need the help of the EMA to get the word out. So when you choose option two and you have this kind of split distinction, what you can do is you can use a templated version of this, a templated format that's going to make it so that the agency requesting the alert only has the option to request certain types. So in the case of a DOT, you're only going to be able to request a transportation category type alert. And you can restrict what types of severities and urgencies and things like that they're able to do. So that they're going to have a much more limited options. They're never going to be able to request, say, a volcano alert or something like that. And we really are doing that with templates that are going to help automate the process to make it simple for everybody involved. And those templates can be done for any type of event you can think of, and they can be done even if you're working exclusively within something more like a traditional alerting authority, like an emergency management agency. So to take a quick look at what that winds up looking like is that if I'm the person entering it, whether I'm an EMA or a DOT or somebody, my first step to invoking the alert is I'm going to have to enter just a handful of fields. And when you think of those as those fields on the left, where you're doing the customized things, like what your message title is, meaning your short message, your long message, your Spanish if you're going to put that in, your description of the event, your WIA duration, and then you're going to click a couple points on the map and you're going to draw the geofence that you want to be the area that receives the WIA. By using a templated format, we can decide in advance on just about every other field that's in the system. So that if you know your transportation emergencies, for in this example, are going to be the same every time, we can basically make almost all of the rest of this fixed. And the things we can't make fixed, like your FIPS codes, we can generate those on the fly without the person having to type them in. As soon as they draw it on the map, we can automatically figure out what the appropriate FIPS codes are, and we'll transmit them over so that everything is going to be kind of nicely packaged and to be able to review for approval. So when you put this all together, the way it really works, it kind of goes like this, roughly a three-step process. There's going to be the drawing, and the drawing is kind of the biggest piece of that geo-targeting the area of concern. It's also where you add in the messaging for the event, and if you want to include that URL for the two-way communication side, that's where you decide if that's going to be included or not. And what we do is we actually wind up making it so that that URL is put in there by the system, rather than have it an operator type it in, because during emergencies, typos happen and things like that. And of course, one letter or character off in a URL and it doesn't work. So we want to make that as smooth and quick as possible. Next, we have the alert part, where the alerting authority is going to do the approval, or the supervisor within the alerting authority is going to do the approval if it's staying in-house. Finally, you have the ongoing communications portion of it. And this is where the regular text messages are being sent out as updates to the folks who are part of the emergency, who are involved out there. And we can ask questions in survey format where we can restrict how they answer, free text, and we can let them respond too in a variety of different ways. Important to note here, that communicate step where you get into the text message, that can be done by any user who's designated to. So in the case that you're splitting the authority, it could be from anybody on any side of the fence or somebody that's not involved in either of those other steps. So that can really be seen as almost an independent function, but one that can be tagged on to somebody else's. So, okay, I've shown you a couple slides to kind of describe what the system is like. And now I want to run you through a quick demonstration of how it really works. So this is what it looks like when we have an event that's going on. And this is something that we kind of have a demo set up here as like I said, we're using DOT for a roadway emergency. And what happens is you have the shape on the bottom, which was the area of concern. And as people are opting in and registering, they're answering a bunch of questions. But let's step back just a little bit. Let's step back and actually create a new one so you can see how it goes from scratch. What we're going to do is we're going to click our Add New, and this is the process I was telling you about where we're going to be automating a lot. So you'll see that we don't have to do too many steps. We're going to type in a short message, and I'm just going to go with something simple like test message right now. The option to do our long field, so we'll just make it long field to make it obvious right now. We have our Spanish, again, not required, but we have the option. And as you notice, when we do our short, we're automatically copying into the long to save you some time in case you're just going to add on to it or modify that. We have our description. This is a test. Please ignore. Make this a really simple one. And now we have two options. We can either pick shapes and draw them on our map. So I can go in here and I can draw them on the fly. A couple of clicks is all it takes, really simple. Or I can have my library of predefined shapes. Now my library of predefined shapes is really handy if I have problem areas or predefined districts or evacuation routes or planning zones around nuclear facilities, any of those kinds of things. I can upload or create on the fly any of those shapes that I want to. For now, we'll go with one that's similar to the area we're working in. And we'll come down here. You'll notice that our latitude and longitudes, everything's calculated. I'm going to change my status to say open, and a full open event means that I'm going to have that URL automatically appended on, as our message is noting in there that we're going to have a URL automatically added here. And then I'm going to click that I do want to send the IPAWS alert. As you'll notice here, we have a lot of safety measures to make sure things are being done very intentionally. I will say we want it to be active for 9 hours. And then I'm going to do one more check here because in the top right of my screen, the letters are a little small, but it says this is a training system. It's important to note that our system, we have independent URLs, totally separate systems for training and live. So everything that we do in this is all an exercise, and we know that. I now save that, and that is what it took for somebody like a DOT or somebody in an EMA who's the initiator to enter the information needed for that wireless emergency alert. Now, the part you can't see that's happening on the back end is people that are in the approval chain are now getting emails and text messages saying you need to log in and approve this message or at least review it for approval. So I'm going to log in as a different type of admin now, and you'll have to kind of imagine me totally changing my persona and where I work. And I'm going to sign into the system, of course, using my two-factor authentication. This time I am signing in as an IPAWS approver. And as I get my code sent to me here, type that in. I submit that, and my view is going to look a lot different. What I'm going to see now is any event that has a request for an IPAWS alert to be approved, specifically a WIA in this case, is going to show up here. And this one up here, test message, is the one we just entered. And when I click on the title, it's going to bring up the shape in there so I can see what the area is that's being requested to have that WIA sent. And then down here, I have the fields that were entered. Here's all of my text for the different short and long messages, and you'll see that the message automatically has the URL appended to it. But then you'll notice some other stuff in here, like the counties with the FIPS codes identified. That was the part that was automatically generated that I never had to put in. The other thing we've done for the purposes of this this demonstration is we've got these fields for the category event, WIA handling, all this stuff. Those are all fixed with the idea that this kind of emergency is going to be similar because it's always going to be transportation, and we know it's going to have to, by policy, meet certain criteria before it winds up being approved. So I'm going to look at this and I'm going to say, yes, this looks great. So I'm going to click on my approved training. Again, notice the training label there. Confirming again, yes. Now I can check my COG ID, my expiration date, my connection status, and my alert duration. I now re-enter my credentials. And once I do that, again, this is one more safety measure. Now I can review everything and I can press submit. And as I press submit, I got my green success message in the bottom right side of my screen, which means that everything should have gone through on the IPAWS side by now. So I'm going to refresh my IPAWS message viewer, and we should see it pop up in there that our WIA was successfully issued to everybody as that's going. Now, the other thing I want to point out there as we got, oh, there it is. So there we go. I've got my LAE there. I can click on that and I can see all my alert information come up. But what I want to point out is, now we know that a WIA will expire naturally after it hits its extended time. But there's a couple other triggers that we have in the system. Yep, everything was good here. The other triggers we have is that even if a DOT is managing an event, but I as the EMA want to shut that WIA down early, I can cancel that before the end time by just clicking on the cancel and doing another approve and basically reapproving it for cancellation. The other thing that is built into this system is that whoever's managing the event, and again, I'll go back to the DOT example here. If I'm logged in as the DOT, and let me get, of course, two-factor authentication, it's good security, but if I'm logged in as the DOT and I decide that the event is over, so let's imagine it was a traffic accident blocking things and the accident's been removed and everything is flowing again, as soon as I come back in here and I close this event, so I'll hit closed, it's closing for the DOT side, meaning the event is over and they're done, but it's also automatically canceling the WIA. So that way the person who initiated or approved it originally doesn't have to go back and do a separate cancellation for it. They can wind up just having that automatically occur when the rest of the event shuts down and the WIA is no longer active. So it really winds up being a process that we tried to make as simple as possible for everybody involved. The other thing that I should note here is that anybody who opted in for updates, once it's closed, they are automatically unsubscribed from all alerts going forward, and all of their personal data, which is really just their phone number, everything else is not terribly personal, is scrambled in the database. So we never actually retain personally identifying information in the system. However, we do wind up being able to generate reports on everything that happens during our events through a situation report during the event, or a very similarly formatted after action report at the end of the event. And they're pretty neat. They wind up showing you the marks on the map where everybody was. Everything is time and date stamped and noted by who did it. And even the different answers to questions, counts, and all messaging that went back and forth happens. Now, very briefly, I'll just hit the messaging portion of this. So we've shown a lot about how the emergency alerting IPAWS side goes. When I want to send a message to everybody or an update in this queue, I very quickly just select all and compose a message. I can have predefined safety messages in the top here, or I can just put out some kind of custom update. So I'll just say update number 1. I can just type it on the fly, send, and that, well, you know, this event has 6 people in it right now, but if there were 60,000, it would go out just as effectively to all of them. It is a very, very quick way of sending things out or providing updates or directions or anything else you need to a lot of people, but really focused on the people that are involved in the emergency and looking for the updates on it. Now, one thing that does happen often is when somebody gets a text message, whether you want them to or not, they reply to it. And if somebody replies to any text message that comes from our system, we do have a way of seeing it on this messages screen that I'm bringing up. And if you see anything that doesn't have a phone number and has this like greenish color, that's one that a system administrator has sent. Anything that does have a phone number and is in a pinkish color is something that was sent by somebody in the public. Now, what we've done for most agencies that have implemented this is when a person sends something in from the public, we put out an auto reply to make it look like it's a completely unmonitored line and just some kind of automatic, you know, for terms and conditions, go here kind of message. The trick is operators will often use this to see what kinds of things people are concerned about, or what, kind of like a barometer for the event. What kind of things are they asking? Stuff like, how long do I need to shelter in place? And rather than just answering that person, you can wind up answering everybody and kind of preempt it from everybody else that's in there. The other part was that I didn't get to show you, and I'll just wrap this up here because I know we're at 20 minutes, is when a person opts into the event clicking on the URL, they get a page that looks like this. It is a very simple page, very low data usage. And what it does, it allows the person to enter whatever information they want. They have to enter the phone number though. And after that, the agency decides what questions or pieces of information do they want to collect upon initial registration to get that picture of who's in their emergency, how many people, what types of people, or what types of vehicles or crews or whatever it is they're looking for. With that, Kiara, I believe you said that you wanted me to stick to about 20 minutes of presentation here. So I will take a pause and open it up so that I can give folks a chance to answer some questions.
Yep, that was really good, John. Thank you for that. We are right at our 20-minute mark. And I just wanted to share this again. John, can you confirm that you can see that with your name and email address there?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, so again, anyone if you have any vendor-specific questions or questions particularly for the John and Mary regarding IRIS, you could email them directly, and we'll just get to ask a couple of questions here. One second.
Hey, Kiara, I just wanted to make one quick note. There's just a letter inverted in that email, and it should be ILOG Corp, not crop.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Sorry about
No
that.
worries.
So that's ilogcorp.com.
Yes. And I can put that in the chat if you like.
Yeah, that would be helpful just in case. Thanks, John. Sorry about that.
No problem.
And hey, John, this is Justin Singer from IPAWS Stakeholder Engagement. When we send out the recording, we'll make sure that we have the correct address in there
Awesome.
as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. And John, what kind of emergencies does this work with, IRIS itself?
So thank you. I appreciate that, Kiara. The beauty of this system is it's so flexible that it works with any kind of emergency. My background actually comes from military and emergency management before coming to the company and working through a lot of government agencies. And one thing that got drilled into my head was the all hazards approach to emergency management. And that's really the approach we took when designing the system. With the way you have the flexibility for the type of shape and the need to communicate, after that, it doesn't matter. You can draw a gigantic shape that goes across, an entire state or multiple states because you have a volcano erupting. You can make, some rather tight ones for something more like a roadway emergency where you're trying to just keep it to an interstate, and just about anything in between, whether that's active shooters, fire hazards, it doesn't matter. The system is flexible enough to adapt. And that's part of the beauty of having the templates, so that you know who has permission to do what. But the other beauty of templates is you can make it so that you have as many as you want. So we can wind up creating these and giving the option to the agencies to say, all right, well, we want to template these 3 things, but then these 4, we need to just pick an option every time. Sure, if that gives you the most flexibility for what you need for your users, then that'll work. So it really works with any kind of emergency. The criteria just being that you want to alert the public and in some cases communicate with the folks that are trapped in the emergency. Does that make sense?
Yep, makes sense to me. Another question, is there any limit to the number of admin users or public that can participate?
No, there is not. The way we offer the system, we basically say it's an unlimited number of users when we offer it from the admin side of the house. And that, of course, is part of the system setup. And from the public side, we do a lot of public information stuff. And I have to say that a lot of our systems guys who set up the background and infrastructure on this did a great job making sure that it can handle whatever kind of traffic the public can throw at it. We've done, many thousands of users on different systems that we have at the same time. And we know how to handle that. We know how to scale to demand. And it's part of what we're really good at, actually. So really, there's no limit to either is the short answer to the question, Kiara.
All right. Thank you, John. And one last question. Can you use it for required WIA testing?
Yes, absolutely. The way I was saying that, we give permission to somebody to do a transportation emergency, another option that we can give people is to do it for required testing on there. So if you're using this as, your exclusive alerting software, then you can wind up taking care of all those requirements as well.
All right, thank you, John. And it looks like, Justin, that's your screen, correct, right? With the corrected email addresses?
Yes, that looks great.
All right, I think we do have time, John, for one last question. Can I communicate with one person or only all at once?
Good question. So you have the option to communicate with as many or as few as you want. And what I can do is, do you mind if I take this screen sharing back really quickly? Because I can show this one pretty easily.
Yep, you got it.
Thank you. It's back on here. So this is our fake event that we have right now. And what I can do is the example I showed earlier, I clicked select all to get everybody. But what I can also do is I can either, I'll just clear this out. I can actually just go ahead and pick one specific user if I want to and just send to them. Or I can pick some subgroup of users, and we've got these predefined subgroups. I can pick just people that registered, say they were cars, and go there. And I have the exact same messaging process there. Well, I just type the alert in. So yes, you have total flexibility.
All right, great. It looks like someone might have a question. If they can put it in the chat, in the Q&A chat box. One attendee. Or you can email it to the email addresses there for John and Mary Farrell.
Hey, Kara, this is Justin. Let's see if Stephen is trying to ask a question. We can unmute him.
Okay.
Stephen, if you have a question.
Stephen, you're unmuted if you want to ask.
Looks like we might have lost Stephen. That's okay, Stephen. You can certainly email us or email John and Mary, so we can get your question answered.
All right. And thank you again, John and Mary, for presenting and participating in our alert and origination software presentation. Again, attendees, you can email further questions to those email addresses listed there.
Great. Thank you, everybody, so much for your time. We appreciate it.